Hello again, everyone. Today, now that we finally have some iron, we're going to look at some automation. Because until now, we haven't really had a chance to do any of that, with the lack of horses and any other movement. But now, if we go into automation, you can see all these primitive things I want to have set up. But most importantly, we have water wheels now, which allow us to produce our first bit of power in this world. So I'm going to clear out a section by the water and show off just what I plan to do today. Now first off, I want to make a cocoa, which I've just managed to get a picture of just up here because the wiki doesn't have it. Next is a crucible. Now this is good for producing a lot of metal and for alloy. It also allows us to make primitive iron and cast iron. The third thing on today's list is this, primitive Helve. This will allow us to produce iron passively in the background, along with welding plates. Fourth is a millstone. This allows automated and infinite grinding of ore and other materials. Finally is a basic press. This allows welding, though you could also use it for plates, but risk losing material. Now that we have the plan for today all worked out, we can actually start working on one of them. Now, in the background, I've been setting up this, the Coca-Cola oven. Now, we should just be able to slot in just these two building controllers. So, we need the output hatch, which will allow us to actually get liquids like creosote, which is what we want with this oven, out of the building block. But we also want the oven hatch itself, which is the main control block. Now this is called a multi-block structure. And it's going to be our first one, but definitely not the last. We use them to do things that would usually require a higher tech level, in most cases. Or it's just slightly more efficient, but takes up on often more power and space. So, we just need 4 of these wrought iron plates that we can finally produce, now that we have iron, and we'll be able to finish off our first multi-block structure of the series. Okay, I've just made the plates in the background. Now to actually put up the controller itself. There we go. You can use any grade of wrench to do this. I'm going to try and have my controller and my other block at the bottom. Apparently it does not like that, so I'm going to have to move these up to the center. Now, I can't remember if you have to break these with a wrench, or if you can just use a normal pickaxe to do it. But I want to move these up. You can see you can rotate and choose which is input and output with a wrench. I don't see an option to break it though, so I'm gonna just guess it's probably just a matter of just breaking it with a pickaxe. As you can see, you can put logs in there and it'll produce charcoal, which is better than the underground pit method, because you are confirmed 1 charcoal per log, instead of a chance of like 1 in 20 for 1 charcoal. But we'll still need to finish setting this up. Alright, I'm just gonna move it up. This is taking a rather long time, which isn't a good sign, but should still just drop the... And I destroyed it. That's the most expensive piece too. Okay, let's just move this top block down to where it was, and I have to go make another controller. So, learned something at the very least. Alright, well, I took the last of my iron reserves, but here we have another controller hatch. Now, if we put this in the middle, it should just work. Why is it still saying incomplete? It has all of the blocks. I don't Does this need to move up? It's a hatch, it should be able to go anywhere. So yeah, you do have to break it with the wrench to be able to do that. There's only 3 types of blocks. I should just be able to put this wherever I feel like. Why is this not complete? If I put you up there instead. No. Is it directional? Is it glitched so it has to be facing a certain orientation to work? Okay, give me a minute, I'm gonna work this out. Okay, so I just tore it down and I checked. It's supposed to have 25 blocks, not including the hatch. But we have 25 plus the hatch, which means I used an extra block somewhere. So I'm gonna just see if I build it without the core being solid, if it'll work now. And it worked. So yeah, all of that just because I put 1 extra block, which is what you're usually supposed to do. But anyway, just stick some logs in there, and after a few minutes, it produces just an entire thing. Using coal produces more creosote, but right now we just want the charcoal with a little bit of creosote byproducts, because we're not looking to fuel it. So every 40 seconds we get a new log turned into charcoal. And now we can actually start storing this up in barrels to be able to treat planks for water wheels. Alright, so this is what we want. We want to get large water wheels. So a water wheel requires planks treated in creosote oil, which we can just do by putting buckets of creosote into a barrel and then putting logs. We also want to produce iron frames, which is just a iron plate on top of a log. So we can start progressing down that path as well. But before we can get into that, I'm afraid there's a bit more side projects to do. While picking up some iron for more iron blooms and other things, I discovered for this stage of progression, we need a lot of glue. And at the moment, the only way we can make glue is from animal bones. So, I think it's about time we start ranching some animals and do a decent bit of hunting. For now, at least, we can get away with just bones from hunting, but we're going to want a large stockpile of animals as well, because they take quite a long time to actually reproduce and grow up in this mod pack. So I'm just going to set out some stables for some cows, and then either pigs or sheep. We'll see. Alright, no pigs, which I would have liked, but I did find a ram and a ewe. That's another thing in this mod pack. You have to find the male and female version of every animal. You can't just grab 2 random sheep and decide that they will be inbred for the rest of generations, like you can for vanilla. There's a little bit more realism here, at the very least. So I've got a bull and a normal cow. I'm gonna bring it back to this pen, which I'm probably going to expand, given how large these animals are. And by feeding them, you up their familiarity, which is something you need when taming wild animals. It means you can actually milk them or shear them for wool, but the first generation has a cap on how familiar they can be with you because they are still wild. It's the next generation that can actually reach 100 and give little bonuses to their production. So we're going to focus on trying to get them to their max as wild animals to actually start breeding up the next generation before getting back into automation. Alright, well we did get some goat meat from hunting, so we'll just cook that up so we can start making some proper food. Oh, wait, what? No, damn it! Okay, no, that's not good. That's so not good. Wait, oh. I forgot why I kept the logs away. I will have to go and get more logs, because I just lost about half an hour's worth of logging just then. Great. Well, in some happier news, I am expanding the cow pen by a decent bit to allow them to move around a little bit more. You don't need to do this, but I find it to be good practice anyways. Later, though it's not necessary, I will be using an iron bucket to actually bring some water in. For the main part, you just want them covered if you are going to do an extra thing, because they can get wear and tear from being out in the environment. Just need to cut this open, and then they'll have almost double the space that they used to. I can expand this one more row since I'm having those two middle parts as extra blocks. Just have to make sure they don't escape, like that one immediately tried to do. So we will have other options for glue later on, but right now, bone meal in a barrel of lime is about the best we can do. I'm also just going to keep scraping these hides that I've collected from hunting, and cooking cowlet clay in the background to get more powder. Because I want a iron water skin. It's the reason I've been putting off making a water skin, actually. Which requires a lot of leather in order to do. So I'll just be stockpiling leather and other resources in the background while continuing to progress. Alright, I did remember you can cook it in the forge as well, which means you'll get one powder per set of cooked clay, because it's a 20% chance, so 1 in 5. So that should speed it up a little bit. I do need a lot of fire clay for the next part, which is the crucible, which will allow us to make cast iron from this point onwards. Now I have kept on ranching and farming in the meantime, and yes, okay, so I was testing to see if you could use a vessel to cook one stack of cowlet clay at a time in order to pull it off. But this way, we can cook an entire stack of cowlet clay, possibly even multiple stacks if we use this method inside of the forge. But we'll be able to produce a lot more, a lot faster, though at the expense of a lot of charcoal to do it. Because even this cost a lot of logs to pull off. But that's 19 cowlet clay out of almost just one batch. So I'm going to keep cooking this up in the background. With the next batch cooking up, I've decided to actually produce our first good chunk of cowlet clay. Now that we have 5, we can actually start making some of the recipes. But we'll need more graphite and more cowlet clay powder to actually do things. So while I wait, I'm going to finish out the sealed brick basement by collecting more sap and just cooking up some conifer resin while waiting for things to get the temperature. While still cooking things up, I've figured out that I need brass and not bronze for this door. Now brass is a different recipe. It's actually similar to bismuth bronze because it requires zinc in that capacity, but it's just copper and zinc. It doesn't have any bismuth in it. So while I wait for other things to cook, and for the cows to finish up, I'll go and make the door. Quick animal area. You can see that now that they've gotten up in its benefit, I can milk the cows now, and I can curdle the milk to get through the first stage of cheese production. I'll also need to keep up this to be able to keep sealing the bricks for the basement. Alright, that should... Wait, no. Oh, damn it. Well, there goes all of the milk I've harvested so far, and one of my plants. So, don't put barrels or plants anywhere near campfires. I'm gonna dig these up now so that doesn't happen again. I move some taps and barrels down up here. As you can see, this has a different temperature setting to the trees I usually do, so I don't much like capock. But rubber fig, if I just put a barrel underneath, you can see its temperature set is different, and it starts producing straight away. So yeah, I much prefer rubber fig to capock still. Though that is quite enough messing around with background things. Enough of the clay is cooked up that we can actually start producing fire clay things, such as a crucible and a mold. These molds are much more durable, so they'll last longer, but you really want a blast furnace and casting channels in order to get infinite use out of the ingots, instead of having to run the game of, will my ingot mold break this time or not? And I'll keep producing more sealed bricks in the background, because I've almost got the full area sealed up. Though while we've got the last bit set up, it's about time to actually get the lever ready for an iron flask, because we're about to start forging things again, and actually cooking up this fire clay in the forge. Finally back into forging, I want to make 2 bismuth knife heads in order to make some shears so we can actually collect some wool from our sheep, because we'll need wool cloth for both the water skin, for a bed, and for some other projects down the road. So, while these are hot, I'm just going to cast them into some knife molds and keep working through these iron looms in order to get to the next stages of automation. Right now, I could make a knife blade, but the hammer's on its last end, so it's probably worth just making a new bismuth hammer. Now, what I want to make next, and the reason I've collected all this bronze, is a Helve hammer. Helve hammers require bismuth or any kind of bronze frame in order to produce, which requires bronze rods. But those are easy enough to make, so we can get into it pretty quickly. But between forging, it's time to... Where did my sheeps go? Wait. Oh, come on. The pit kills must have burnt through the fence, and one of my sheep are dead. Wait, okay, there is... Okay, the female sheep is alive, and I'm pretty sure that the sheep is pregnant, so we will get a next generation. It's just we won't be able to make any more with this group. So that's a pain. I'll have to fix up this fence. We can make it a bit smaller since we only have 1 sheep now. But yeah, this whole episode has been one big meeting on fire safety for the most part. I'll just have to forge this out to another set of rods before collecting my sheep again. Alright, goals 1 and now goals 2 are fully complete. We can start working on some actual automation instead of just advancement. Although, not before at least a little bit more screwing around. Because I've gotten this wool from killing sheep, and now we have 40 wool yarn that we can start turning into cloth after I make a loom. Alright, now setting up the loom in the workshop, because I'm not even going to chance this burning, for the amount of things of mine that have burned this episode. But it seems with every 16 wool, which is every 1 wool cluster, we can make 1 entire sheet of wool cloth. Though it does take quite a bit, though we should get back onto progression. Using a copper wrench and 8 bismuth rods, we can produce a bronze frame. Now this is important for most very basic equipment, and we'll be using at least one of these frames to produce a Helve hammer. And more than that, I finally get a chance to show off what the crucible is used for. You see, by putting different amounts of metal into the crucible, you can actually alloy by hip. So you don't need to plan out the amount beforehand, you can just mix the metals in the crucible and it'll cast out into a full set. Now you can see for bismuth bronze we need certain portions, and we can just do that by eye inside of the crucible. We don't have to plan everything out before. So by adding a little bit more here and there, we can actually cast out directly from the crucible into any molds or anything else that we'd like. Let's see, if I put just a little bit more of this in, it produces all of it into bismuth bronze. And then, by putting a knife mold in, it casts into the knife mold directly, without any need for temperature regulation or anything else. Speaking of improvements, with that last knife blade, we were able to make shears to collect enough cloth to do something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. By combining bismuth powder and graphite powder to make dyes, we can now make cyan cloth. Along with hickory logs, we can produce a bed, and a cyan one at that. Usually a rather difficult color to come by, but now we can just do it with ores and a little bit of progression. So, episode, I think 6, and we finally have a bed. That's the level of progression in this mod pack. Though as nice having a bed is, it's not quite where we're at the moment, because we have no time to rest. Now it's time to produce the third thing I've wanted for today's episode, a Helve hammer. This will allow automated bloom iron production. Now to go set it out by the water so it can actually be powered. Wait, it can't be that simple. I remember some things have to... You need to throw it at the hammer? Okay, well that's 5 hours I'll never get back, but we have the Helve hammer fully working and geared up. Though no amount of gearing it up actually speeds it up. This is as fast as it goes. Up onto other projects now. Well, at least other things are simpler. Like making brass rods. Just need to combine this with 3 of these bricks, and I make a sealed door. I'm also grinding down gold in the background to start making a proper fluid tank to store all this creosote, because it's getting out of hand. I'm using gold because 1, it's one of the better products to actually use for this, and 2, if I could actually get these forged together, it's a byproduct from iron mining, so we get a lot of it. It's also got a pretty low temperature, so we can actually produce it rather quickly. Now take 2 long rods, combine it with 4 plates and a hammer, and you get a gold drum, which can store 32 buckets of creosote. I'll also want to make a pipe in a bit. And here the pipe is, just set out 3 plates. I am making a medium pipe just for throughput. Don't want anything bottlenecked. Can also store fluid inside of it, which is good. Stick this right on the hatch. You see it has 3 buckets in it already. Then if I put the drum there, it starts filling the drum up rather quickly, and the hatch is fully empty. So just from the coal production that we've been doing so far, there's already 14 buckets of creosote in there. Before doing any progression, I want to at least finish up the outer structure, as this sealed brick area is also a multi-block. By putting in this door, this area is technically ready, but it requires one more thing, which needs glass to do, and we don't have that yet. We'll leave that for next episode, but we can at least move our food down here, so that once we have that set up, everything will store a lot better. Moving right on to our 4th project for today, we can have a manual quern, or, with the use of some other technology, we can produce, let's see, what was it again? A millstone. I need a saw. So hammer, saw, gear. And now this is a quern without the durability regulations, and a decent bit faster than a quern. So we'll be using this from now on. Our basic millstone. So this is the cellar. We have one stacked on its side in the other direction instead of vertical, but this is what we need glass for, the climate station. Now, we couldn't do this until recently because it requires metal components. We also need blue stained glass, which is difficult to get, but we can actually start production of glass at some point today. This produces sheets, but we will be needing the other form, the basin pour. As you can see, you can use any form of kaolin clay, which is a bit too expensive for this, so we're going to be using brass or bronze coated sheets instead. And we're going to be using them to produce a basin pour, which produces entire glass blocks in one go. So we're going to need some blue stained glass, which requires specific sand that we don't have yet. But we can produce glass planes to finish out the windows for the warehouse today. But before getting sidetracked by glass, we should at least set up our millstone. Just requires one more cog and it should power right up. Now let's see. There we go. And it's moving rather quickly as well, so we should be able to mill stuff at a decent pace. Now I want to make a press as well, but that's a problem for tomorrow, because we can finally go to bed. It has been so many days since this. There we go. First use of a bed in this entire world. Now to build the last piece of today's project, the basic press. Now this is useful for welding. You could also make plates, but then you risk actually losing the product. And let's go have some food before I start starving to death as well, because the winter has really taken out our food stores. Now to actually use our press for welding, we need cast iron. Specifically, we need a basin, which means we're going to have to go use our crucible to cook up some cast iron. But we can also grab some of our refined iron blooms on the way and make some wrought iron. So here we have our first 5 bits of cast iron. Another new for us. cast iron's a decent bit weaker, and you can't use it to make mining hammers. Even though I thought you could, because there's no mining hammer molds. But if we take our hammer and a good bit of iron, we can make a basin that we can put under our press on top of our charcoal forge down there, so that we'll be able to automate our metal production of plates through welding. With how fast things are going, even adding some more water wheels isn't enough. I'll need to detach at least one part, but there we go, the press is active. So, there we have it. We're done for today, we just need to add a little bit more power.